Among Us references in other shows, movies, and games, and especially the people from cartoons and movies referencing Among Us. Especially they have dressed up as their character. The first one to pop off was Family Guy, a crossover for Among Us episode, which was, first of all, hilarious. And there's also a Among Us game. Peter Griffin shows up. And next in Teardown, there's Among Us parody. FNAF features Among Us reference, as FNAF is dressed as Among The Simpsons features Among Us, but in recent intros of The Simpsons, Homer Simpson is dressed as a yellow that looks like the yellow from Among Us, but it actually is since it's in human form. Also in The Simpsons, there's Among Us family features of The Simpsons. DNS production reference Among Us, even though it's a crossover of Goofy the Imposter. And there's a Goofy the Imposter with the Among Us theme. Also in DS production, Ben the Imposter, a reference to Among Us. Main antagonist, Red. Sonic also referenced the Among Us, Sonic Among Us, with Sonic and friends being as Among Us. Snake of Clash also has a Red Among Us Snake version of Red, since I'm on this game anyways. Mario's also a part of this, since it's Among Us version of Mario. Shrek has an Among Us reference. Mickey Mouse has an Among Us. In Glass Onion, they show this right. And DuckTales features this Among Us reference, but this one doesn't count because this was pretty much already edited on YouTube. But they actually have a real DuckTales Among Us reference, as they're dressed up as Duck. The Traders has this Among Us reference, as it's named after Among Us, a trader in space. Spider-Man has this Among Us reference as Spider Among Us. Dragon Ball is also a part of this Among Us reference. The Peanuts, aka Charlie Brown, has referenced these Among Us parodies, but it kind of makes sense their colors are the exact same. Yeah, that's true. Last but not least, but we have the amazing world of Gumball.